Cheers, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populist. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. Well, there is that great Bob Dylan song, "The Times They Are A-Changin'," and right now we are going through a major change that I don't think people truly appreciate. Just how fast it's changing, and the fact that the global order is shifting to a new paradigm, one that we should have seen coming, but as Americans, if you're a neocon, if you believe in American exceptionalism, it's sort of ingrained in you that America's number one. That's the way things have always been, and that's how things are always going to be. But unfortunately for us, there's other people in the world who have a different viewpoint, and they too want to have part of this global power. And so we're seeing this change. And the irony is, for those of us who are anti-globalist, anti-globalization, the people who have really started this change and caused it to happen are the globalists themselves. It's one of the great ironies. Back in 2020, we had the pandemic, which was caused probably by a lab leak in China, and our own government was funding this research, so it came back to bite us. But because of this pandemic, all the different countries, they shut down, they closed their borders, and kind of reversed globalization, which is why the head of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, wrote that book. What's it called again? The Great Reset. Sorry, brain fart there. The Great Reset. Now, if you read his book, he's basically saying, oh crap, this pandemic has reversed globalization. How do we get out of this pandemic and get back to the script? That was his concern. And he was right, because of the pandemic, globalization did take a big hit. But just as we're transitioning out of the pandemic, what happens? We have this Ukraine-Russia conflict, which was stirred up again by the globalist neoconservatives who were trying to use Ukraine as a weapon against Russia because they hate Russia. They always have hated Russia. And they've been trying for years to figure out a way to isolate Russia, cause regime change, cause the country to collapse, so then our Western interests can go in there and turn it into a vassal state of the West. That has been our plan, and that's why we encourage Ukraine to be very hostile toward Russia. This war starts, we put our sanctions on, we do everything we can. And unfortunately for us, they don't seem to be working, and this has further caused globalization to crash, because now we have different parts of the world choosing different sides. We have us blowing up critical infrastructure in Germany. So now Germany, even if they don't admit it, they're not happy with us. We have the global South saying, we're not going to get involved in this. That's your crap up there in Europe and the United States. Leave us out of it. We want to trade and have prosperity and not war. So now we're seeing a huge fracture in the world and a complete fracturing of globalization. Now, the main player in this whole falling apart of globalization is China. Now, there's a great book written by Michael Pillsbury called The 100-Year Marathon. And he's describing China because he's a China expert. And there was a debate within the United States whether China wanted to become pro-West, become part of the West, or if China wanted to one day usurp us and be the great hegemon. Now, he says that the people in the U.S. and our State Department, most of them wanted China to become like the West. So when we saw certain evidence coming from China, we always gave it the benefit of the doubt because we wanted China to be part of our order, right? But then there were the people who warned us, people who fled China, saying, no. China doesn't want to become part of the West. China wants to beat the West. And he said, eventually, too late, They figured out that, yes, China wanted to compete with us and beat us, not become part of us. And in the book, he talks about a Chinese proverb or tale where you have this great leader, emperor, and you have somebody in his court who has a lot of power and wants to challenge the emperor and usurp him. But he makes a mistake by letting his attentions become known too soon, allowing the emperor to take action to prevent it. And the moral here is that if you're going to go after the big guy, you need to wait until the time is right to strike, which is why China over the last 15, 20 years has always been very ambiguous as far as speaking on global issues and sticking their nose out or sticking their neck out and picking sides. And so they're always very vague because they don't want to stir up too much stuff because they're trying to get big enough in order to challenge the United States. Well, this may have finally happened. We might finally be seeing China announcing itself to the world as the world leader and as a challenger to the United States, because they recently released a 12-point plan for a political settlement in Ukraine. And there's 12 of them, but there's 3 in particular that I want to cover because they are the most relevant. And the first one is respecting the sovereignty of all countries. And it says, universally recognized international law, including the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter, must be strictly observed. The sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all countries must be effectively upheld. All countries, big or small, strong or weak, rich or poor, are equal members of the international community. All parties should jointly uphold the basic norms governing international relations and defend international fairness and justice. Equal and uniform application of international law should be promoted, while double standards must be rejected. Now, that last sentence is key. Double standards must be rejected. Who do you think they are talking about there? The United States. They watched us in 2016 complain about supposed Russian interference into our democracy. Yet the United States has gone over through dozens of countries and interfered in their democracy. So that's a direct shot at the United States. The second one, abandoning the Cold War mentality. The security of a country should not be pursued at the expense of others. The security of a region should not be achieved by strengthening or expanding military blocs. The legitimate security interests and concerns of all countries must be taken seriously and addressed properly. There is no simple solution to a complex issue. All parties should, following the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security, and bearing in mind the long-term peace and stability of the world, help forge a balanced, effective, and sustainable European security architecture. All parties should oppose the pursuit of one's own security at the cost of others' security, prevent bloc confrontation, and work together for peace and stability on the Eurasian continent. So again, who is China talking about? Abandoning the Cold War mentality and forming military blocs to, push against other countries, NATO and Russia, expanding NATO toward Russia, challenging their security and making them insecure. So that, again, another shot at the United States. And number 10 here is stopping unilateral sanctions. Unilateral sanctions and maximum pressure cannot solve the issue. They only create new problems. China opposes unilateral sanctions unauthorized by the UN Security Council. Relevant countries, the United States, should stop abusing unilateral sanctions and long-arm jurisdiction against other countries so as to do their share in de-escalating the Ukraine crisis and create conditions for developing countries to grow their economies and better the lives of their people. Again, a direct shot at the United States. We don't like you. We unilaterally sanction your country. We destroy your economy and hinder you from being able to develop. That's our weapon that we use. And China is saying, knock this off. You can't just go around and bullying other countries. There has to be a UN Security Council resolution to do this. You can't go around being a bully. And if we, China, are the hegemon, we won't do that. And it's funny that they say that because of this plan here and because of the rumors of China helping Russia, our U.S. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, came out and said, if China helps Russia militarily, we're going to have to punish China with sanctions. So once again, we're acting unilaterally to try to punish other countries with sanctions if they do things that we do not like. Now, why has China picked now to make this move and to sort of announce themselves to the world? Well, a few reasons. One, it's been a year since this conflict started. And when the conflict started, the sanctions put on Russia were supposed to crush the Russian economy, cause political instability within Russia, and hopefully the fall of Vladimir Putin. None of that happened. Their economy is just fine. So what's that telling China? It's saying, well, if they couldn't crush Russia, they sure as heck can't crush us. We have 10 times the size of the Russian economy in China. We are a peer economically to the United States. So now they've seen, after a year, that economic sanctions can't hurt them. Also, there's alternatives. We have the SWIFT system, which is how banks transfer money. Now they have the, it's called the SPFS. That's created by Russia. That also does the same thing. You have BRICS, which is the alliance or the economic bloc of Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa. That is sort of a opposing or alternative or competing economic power to Western Europe and the United States. So they're saying a lot of things here that say the United States, they can't hurt us. So there's nothing to fear from them if we step up and say something and get involved in this. And of course, the very last thing here is if Russia loses, China's next. And Taiwan and China is the same as Ukraine and Russia. Obviously, we're already saber-rattling there. We have Pelosi go there. We have Kevin McCarthy saying he's going to go to Taiwan. So China knows that they cannot have Russia lose, or else the same exact thing will happen to them with their Taiwan, and the neocons will shift to them. So it's now or never. Russia has to win. And based on the battlefield right now, looking at NATO, looking at the issue of armaments and ammunition, how NATO's running out, they're pretty comfortable that Russia is winning. And so now is, again, a good time to step up and say something and get Russia over that finish line. So NATO's been defeated, and then they'll think twice before saber-rattling more in Taiwan. But with these neocons, you can never be sure. They are crazy, and that's my concern. And is, will the West, will NATO, will the United States accept the fact that the world is changing? Or will they escalate in order to prevent this and cause some sort of global world war, which, of course, if it were nuclear, would mean the end of our entire civilization. So that's my great concern. And that's the question. Will the West, will these neocons say, we're licked here. We tried, we lost. It's time to accept that there is no longer a unipolar world. There are multiple powers, and we have to work together. And as an American, of course, I want America to be number one. But you can't treat other countries as if they're our whipping boys, as if they don't have their own goals and aspirations. as if they just want to follow along behind the United States. Those days, unfortunately, are over. And to think that things will never change is stupid. Things always change. Every empire eventually collapses or loses its power. So I don't want the United States to collapse, obviously, but we have to understand that with China, with India, with Russia, there are other powers out there who are not just going to follow along and do what they're told like they're little kids. They're big boys too, and we have to have that mutual respect if we're ever going to have peace that's lasting in this world, and if we're going to stave off a World War III situation, which is, of course, the greatest concern. Well, that's it for now. Again, if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.